The world is nervously watching Sri Lanka. The Rajapaksa government is a testament on how not to run a country. Months of protests, worst economic slump since independence, and a political crisis like no other. As things look on ground, it seems the turmoil is far from over. The country has been placed under an emergency for the second time in 5 weeks. The president says it was to ensure public order. But what's happening on the streets of Colombo is exactly the opposite. Protests continue as we speak. On the 7th of May, as midnight struck, the presidential order came into effect. But around the same time, angry protesters took to the streets. The protests are a continuation from the night before. The process has been intensifying for months. Outside the Prime Minister's office, it has shifted to the Parliament Road, where different unions also joined in, like trade, transport and railway. They all gathered with one demand: resignation of the president. Police fired tear gas and water cannons at students who were trying to storm the Sri Lankan parliament. Earlier protests had called on senior Rajapaksa's resignation. But now it seems the public pressure is turning towards the president. Remember, Mahinda is the elder brother of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Mahinda himself served as the president of Sri Lanka from 2005 to 2015. The two brothers have dominated nearly every aspect of life in Sri Lanka for almost 20 years. Until recently, they controlled 75% of the country's budget. Together, the Rajapaksa clan has been accused of creating the economic crisis in Sri Lanka. We do understand that the protests are currently going on in Sri Lanka, and this is to prove of how the economic situation in the country is deteriorating by the day. Prices of basic necessities like fuel, food are skyrocketing, and people in Sri Lanka, or Sri Lankans themselves, are angry with the Rajapaksas. They want the Rajapaksa family or the Rajapaksa clan to resign. They are demanding for the president to resign. They also want acknowledgement from the government that this crisis should be dealt with very fast. And for more on this, we are being joined by Shanakian Raza Manikam from Colombo. Shanakian, thank you very much for making time and welcome to WION. How can you assess the situation in Sri Lanka? What's going on and how can this problem be resolved?
Yes, thank you for having me on the program. In fact, Sri Lanka is facing its worst economic crisis, and WION has reported continuously on the situation in Sri Lanka. However, the economic crisis has now become a political crisis. It has become a political deadlock. Where the people of this country are demanding that President Gotabaya Rajapaksa resigns immediately and Prime Minister Rajapaksa along with his cabinet resigns immediately. But however, the President and the Prime Minister are just there is a power battle going on between the President and the Prime Minister. Whilst the country is suffering, there is no fuel, there is no food, there is no electricity. And in the near future, we would face shortage of even basic amenities. But to resolve this, no country is going to come forward to help the government of Sri Lanka when there is such political instability. And most recently, President has declared a state of emergency in the country. And, state of emergency, there is no emergency in the country other than protests that's happening against the president. So we strongly feel that the state of emergency has been declared to suppress the people who are standing up against the government. And also, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa declared a state of emergency about 5 weeks ago. And when you declare a state of emergency, that needs to be ratified by the parliament. Parliamentarians need to vote for it, vote in favor of it. However, 5 weeks ago, when President brought in the emergency law, President withdrew the emergency law himself before it could be ratified in the parliament because he was not sure of his majority in parliament. Because no parliamentarian should support this president's move to suppress the people's voice. So and yesterday was the last day of Parliament for the first sessions of the month, and President declared a state of emergency last evening. And within minutes after the state of emergency being declared, we saw police brutality where security forces and police riot forces were assaulting civilians who were protesting peacefully. So the country is heading towards an anarchy. It's a very worrying time for Sri Lanka. As a member of the Parliament in the opposition, we are concerned about the future of Sri Lanka.
Shana Kian, let me ask you this, because the Sri Lankans have promised a revolt. If a revolution happens and the president refuses to step down, will this not worsen the crisis in Sri Lanka?
I don't think it can get any worse from here onwards. The finance minister in charge has called himself a night watchman. He has compared himself to a night watchman in a test cricket match who comes in to save the top order from collapsing. So if that's the state of affairs in the country, where the finance minister says that he's not the best person for the job, but he's there to defend the top order, with the top order means to defend the president, the prime minister. It's important to note that the current finance minister and the justice minister, which are the same person, Honorable Ali Sabri, was the president's former private lawyer. He appeared on behalf of corruption charges against President Gotabaya Rajapaksa before he became president. He has declared that the country only has $50 million worth of reserves in the country. So $50 million is absolutely nothing in terms of a country. I mean, that is not enough to last us even a few hours of our essentials in this country. So I don't think it can get any worse. And also, we are very thankful to the people of India and the government of India, and especially the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister, who has helped the Sri Lankan government and was promised more help. The Tamil Nadu Chief Minister, we are very thankful to M.K. Stalin. But we are told that the line of credit that India gave Sri Lanka has been used to import steel into the country. So I think the government of India's plan was to give money to the country to buy essentials like buy fuel, buy medicine, buy food. But the government of Sri Lanka is accused of importing steel worth of $250 million. And the government is also accused of using the money that India has given to buy tear gas to suppress people who are opposing the government. So I think any further aid...
Obviously, that is corruption. And my question is, if the government cannot help itself and it cannot help the country, then who or what can help Sri Lanka at this moment?
Well, right now, the opposition is happy to take over the responsibility. I think the leader of the opposition has agreed to take over the country based on two conditions, and the main opposition parties have all agreed on one thing, on principle, that President Gotabaya Rajapaksa should resign, because Sri Lanka's country's governance system, the executive president, is the most powerful body of the three pillars that uphold the country: the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. So the executive is the most powerful. So till the president is in the chair, till the president is in charge of this country, there is no way that this country can go forward. So the opposition is happy to take over this challenge. The opposition could take this country out of... The opposition will not be able to reduce the prices of fuel, but the opposition can come up with a long-term plan to take this country out of this mess over the next 2 years. The opposition can deal with the IMF. The opposition can, because there's political stability, but only on the condition that President Gotabaya Rajapaksa resigns as the executive president and hands over power back to the parliament. We need to bring in a bill to strengthen parliament again, because if parliament is not strengthened, then there is nothing that can be done.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much, Shana Kian, Raza Manikan, for your insights and for talking to WION today. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.